Welcome back. Today we're getting into a really practical teaching discussion, one that really gets to the heart of how you start your day with spiritual power and confidence.
We are. And the study material you've brought today from the You Need Faith in Jesus team teaching series is focused on Psalm 5.
Which is really a blueprint for an intentional morning, isn't it?
It is. I think a lot of people see the Psalms as, something you run to when you're already in a crisis, but Psalm 5 is different.
It's proactive.
Exactly. It's like spiritual preventive maintenance. It lays out this vital discipline for beginning the day, and it connects David's very real anxieties with the absolute holiness of God.
So our goal today is to really walk through Psalm 5 verse by verse using the King James Version. We want to unpack David's model for prayer and understand the assurance that comes from it.
And all this, of course, is guided by the detailed analysis provided by the You Need Faith in Jesus team.
Right. So let's jump in. The way David starts is fascinating. He immediately shows that prayer is so much more than just words.
It's the entire inner person, the
Right.
entire soul.
He starts his appeal by pleading for God's attention, but he immediately goes deeper than just spoken language. Give ear to my words, O Lord. Consider my meditation. That's Psalm 5, verse 1.
And right there, in that first verse, David sets up two totally distinct but connected forms of communication.
Okay.
First, you have my words. These are the formal vocalized prayers, the things he can actually articulate and form into sentences. And that's important. Formal prayer is good.
But that's not the whole story.
Not even close. Because the second part is consider my meditation.
And based on the source teachings, this isn't just, quiet reflection. It's much more raw than that.
Oh, absolutely. The Hebrew word here for meditation often means something like a groaning or a sigh. It's the unspoken anxieties, the swirling feelings in your heart that you can't even find words for.
Wow.
David is basically saying, Lord, don't just listen to the prayers I managed to say out loud. Listen to the chaos inside that I can't articulate.
That raises a question for me, though. If meditation here means all this inner anxiety and groaning, how is that an acceptable prayer to a holy king? Isn't that just complaining?
That is a fantastic question. And the answer is really the key to intimacy with God.
Yeah.
It's acceptable because of where he's directing it.
To God?
To God. He's not just stewing in his anxiety. He's actively moving it out of his own heart and placing it into God's ear.
Yeah.
He's asking to be fully known, even the parts of him that are messy and unspoken.
And the team's analysis draws a line straight from this to the New Testament.
It does, and it's a beautiful connection. You see this same idea affirmed so powerfully by Paul in Romans chapter 8, verse 26. He talks about the Holy Spirit interceding for us with groanings which cannot be uttered. It confirms that prayer is not about how eloquent you are. It's about sincerity. God is listening to the heart.
Whether it's a formal prayer or just a sigh of exhaustion.
Exactly. Both are heard. Both are welcomed.
So David then intensifies this appeal and gets very specific about who he's talking to.
Yes, he does.
Hearken unto the voice of my cry, my King and my God, for unto thee will I pray. That's verse 2.
You see the escalation. It goes from words and meditation to a cry.
Yeah.
There's an urgency there, a desperation. But the theological key, the real foundation, is how he addresses God.
My King and my God.
That combination is everything. It's the balance that makes prayer so powerful.
Okay, let's break that down. Why my King? That sounds so formal, almost distant if you're trying to be intimate.
Well, my King is the declaration of reverence. It's acknowledging God's absolute sovereignty, his authority over everything. It reminds David and us that we're approaching the one who is in ultimate control. It sets the posture to one of submission.
Okay, so that's the awe, the reverence.
Right, and then he balances it perfectly with my God.
Which is the personal part.
That's the intimacy. That's the close personal covenant relationship, the father-child connection. See, if you only have King, you might be paralyzed by fear. If you only have my God, you might become too casual and forget his power.
But together.
Together, you have the foundation for powerful prayer. Absolute awe combined with absolute confidence. And as the source material points out, referencing Psalm 63, verse 1, our prayer has to be directed to this God alone.
And that leads us to verse 3, which is really the operational part, the discipline.
This is the how-to.
My voice shalt thou hear in the morning, O Lord. In the morning will I direct my prayer unto thee, and will look up.
And this is David's declaration of his morning discipline. It's pure, radical intentionality. He's not fitting God in when he has a spare moment.
No, he's giving God the first part of the day, the first fruits of his mind, his energy.
Precisely. And that act sets the spiritual compass for everything that happens after. It's saying, before the world tells me what's important today, I'm declaring that you are my priority.
I mean, in our modern, crazy world, that seems so difficult, but also so necessary. Why is the morning so critical?
Because the morning is the battleground for the day. If you don't anchor yourself in God's truth first thing, the world will set the agenda for you. Your anxieties, your emails, the news, they'll define your reality. David secures the spiritual victory before the day's battles even start.
And that phrase, I will direct my prayer, it sounds so deliberate.
It is. The Hebrew there means to arrange, to set in order. The image the teachings give is of a priest in the tabernacle, meticulously arranging the sacrifice on the altar.
Wow.
He's not just, tossing his requests at God. He's thoughtfully, deliberately preparing a spiritual offering.
And then comes the follow-through, and we'll look up. That seems so important.
It changes everything. Praying and then just walking away is a monologue. Looking up turns it into a dialogue. It's the posture of hopeful expectation.
I've presented my case, and now I'm watching and waiting for your answer.
Yes, I've spoken, and now I'm listening. It's an active faith, expecting God to move.
And this model, this discipline, it's not just David's idea. It's mirrored at the highest level.
It really is. I mean, think about Jesus Christ himself. Mark chapter 1, verse 35 tells us, he rose a great while before day to go to a solitary place to pray.
Right.
If the Son of God needed that intentional, focused early morning discipline to anchor his day, how much more do we? It's the ultimate spiritual anchor.
Okay, so that establishes the practice of prayer, but now David makes a shift. He moves from the how to the who. He grounds his confidence in the very character of God.
And this is so vital. His hope isn't in his own ability to pray perfectly. It's in the unchanging nature of the one he's praying to.
For thou art not a God that hath pleasure in wickedness, neither shall evil dwell with thee. The foolish shall not stand in thy sight. Thou hatest all workers of iniquity. Thou shalt destroy them that speak leasing. The Lord will abhor the bloody and deceitful man.
That's verses 4 through 6. It's a powerful theological statement. And it starts with this absolute. God takes no pleasure in wickedness. Evil cannot coexist with him.
So his very nature is opposed to sin.
Fundamentally. The source material points us to Habakkuk chapter 1, verse 13, which says, God's eyes are too pure to even look on evil. This divine holiness is the source of all moral certainty. If God could tolerate evil, you couldn't trust him for justice.
It's his opposition to sin that gives the righteous hope.
Exactly. And then David defines those who oppose God. He calls them the foolish.
And in the Bible, foolish isn't about intelligence, is it?
Not at all. It's about moral rebellion. A fool is someone who has decided, practically speaking, that God is irrelevant to their choices.
Yeah.
And because their foundation is rebellion, they shall not stand in God's sight. They have no spiritual footing.
Which leads to some very strong language from David. Thou hatest all workers of iniquity. How do we process that word hatest when we think of God's love?
That's a point that needs careful handling. The team's analysis is really good here. God's hatred isn't like a petty human emotion. It's the righteous, holy, and necessary opposition of a perfect king to everything that corrupts and destroys his creation.
So he hates the practice of iniquity because of what it does.
Yes. It's a settled judicial opposition to rebellion. It's not a temper tantrum. It's the guarantee of ultimate justice.
And he specifically calls out lying, leasing, and deceit.
He does. He focuses on the destructive power of words and violence. The Lord will abhor them. It really sets the stage for what he's going to say later about his enemies.
So if God's holiness is this absolute, this unyielding, it creates a huge problem, doesn't it? How can any sinful person, David included, ever approach him?
That is the central question of the entire Bible. And this section explains exactly why the death of Jesus Christ was necessary.
To satisfy that holiness.
To satisfy that perfect justice. Without that sacrifice, we'd all be among the foolish who cannot stand in his sight. His holiness would consume us.
And the practical application of that is, well, it's huge.
It's the ultimate motivation for living a holy life. Not to earn God's favor, we can't, but out of sheer gratitude and reverence for the one who made a way for us to stand in his presence.
Which brings us to this incredible turning point in the psalm. After establishing that the wicked are shut out, David explains how he gets in.
And it all hangs on one little word, but.
But as for me, I will come into thy house in the multitude of thy mercy, and in thy fear will I worship toward thy holy temple. Verse 7.
That but is everything. He's saying, I'm not like them. But my access isn't based on my own goodness. It's based entirely on one thing.
The multitude of thy mercy.
An overwhelming, inexhaustible supply of grace. His access is a gift. The sources draw that beautiful parallel to Ephesians chapter 2, verse 4, that God, who is rich in mercy, has made us alive with Christ. We get in because of his wealth, not ours.
So if mercy is the ticket in, what's the proper response once you're there?
The response is worship in thy fear. And again, that's not cowering terror. It's profound awe. It's reverence. It's the deep gratitude of someone who knows they don't deserve to be there but was invited in anyway.
And once he's established that he's there by mercy, he immediately asks for something incredibly practical.
He does. He moves from worship to a plea for daily guidance.
Lead me, O Lord, in thy righteousness because of mine enemies. Make thy way straight before my face. That's verse 8.
This is a prayer every single one of us needs every single day. Notice he doesn't ask to be led by his own good ideas. He asks to be led in God's righteousness.
A total submission to God's will.
Total submission. And look at his motivation. Because of mine enemies.
That's interesting. It connects his personal holiness directly to his public witness, doesn't it?
It absolutely does.
Mm-hmm.
He knew people were watching. His enemies weren't just waiting for him to fail politically. They were waiting for him to fail morally so they could mock not just him, but the God he served.
So our integrity becomes a testimony.
A powerful one. He's basically praying, Lord, don't let me stumble, because if I do, your name gets dragged through the mud. It elevates our daily choices into something much bigger.
And he wants a straight path. What does that mean?
It means a clear path, a level path. Not necessarily an easy path, but one where God's will is so obvious he can't mistake it. It's that promise from Proverbs chapter 3, verse 6. Acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths.
He needs clarity because the stakes are so high.
So high, he can't afford to get it wrong.
Okay, now David zooms in on the specific threat he's facing. He gives this chilling anatomy of his enemies, focusing on the destructive power of their words.
Yes, he lays out the case against them in detail.
For there is no faithfulness in their mouth. Their inward part is very wickedness. Their throat is an open sepulchre. They flatter with their tongue.
That's verse 9. And he gives us 4 characteristics of what we call toxic speech. First, no faithfulness. Their words are unreliable. They're weapons, not communication.
And it comes from a deeper problem. Their inward part is very wickedness. It's a heart issue.
It's always a heart issue. The words are just the overflow of a corrupt source. And Paul actually quotes this very verse in Romans chapter 3, verse 13, to show this is the state of all humanity apart from God.
But that central image he uses, it is just unforgettable. Their throat is an open sepulchre.
It's one of the most powerful graphic images in the whole Bible. A sepulchre is a tomb, an open tomb. What comes out of an open tomb?
The stench of death, decay.
Precisely. David is saying that their words, their gossip, their lies, their slander only bring corruption and spiritual death into the world. Their speech pollutes everything it touches.
Wow. That's a heavy warning for us today, especially with social media.
Isn't it? Does our speech bring life or the stench of a grave? And then he mentions the sneakiest tool of all.
Flattery.
They flatter with their tongue. It's praise that isn't genuine. It's a tool used to manipulate and trap people. It's the poison of the grave disguised as honey.
So having described their corruption, David then prays for justice.
He does.
Destroy thou them, O God. Let them fall by their own counsels. Cast them out in the multitude of their transgressions, for they have rebelled against thee. Verse 10.
Okay, and we have to read this correctly. This is a plea for divine justice, not a cry for personal, malicious revenge.
Right, because for a lot of people today, praying for your enemies to be destroyed sounds wrong, vindictive.
It can, if you miss the justification. Look at how he frames it. First, he asks that they fall by their own counsels.
That they get caught in their own traps.
Exactly. He's trusting in the self-destructive nature of evil. But the most important part, the absolute key, is the last phrase.
For they have rebelled against thee, against God.
Yes. This isn't about David's bruised ego. It's about God's honor. He's saying this isn't just an attack on me, your servant. This is a rebellion against you, the king. And that transforms the prayer from a personal vendetta into a plea for cosmic righteous order.
It gives us confidence that God is a God of justice who will, in the end, make things right.
That's the assurance. That evil schemes will ultimately fail because they are built on rebellion against the ultimate authority.
And after all that darkness, David pivots one last time. He ends the psalm by focusing on the incredible security and joy that belongs to those who trust in God.
It's a glorious conclusion. The contrast is just stunning.
But let all those that put their trust in thee rejoice. Let them ever shout for joy, because thou defendest them. Let them also that love thy name be joyful in thee.
There's that word, but, again, turning everything on its head. For the wicked, destruction,
Yeah.
but for the trusting, joy. And not just a little happiness, but shouting for joy.
And it's not a joy based on good circumstances.
Not at all. The source of the joy is the reason given right in the verse. Because thou defendest them. Their security isn't in their situation, it's in their defender. When you know the King of the universe is personally protecting you, joy is the only logical response.
And he adds that they love thy name.
Which means they love God for who he is, his character, his power, his holiness. Their joy is in a person, not in their circumstances. It's what Paul says in Philippians chapter 4, verse 4. Rejoice in the Lord always. The object of the joy is what makes it unshakable.
And then the final verse, the final declaration that just seals the whole prayer with this incredible image of protection.
It's the perfect conclusion.
For thou, Lord, wilt bless the righteous. With favor wilt thou compass him as with a shield. Verse 12.
So he moves from his initial cry to this place of absolute certainty.
Right.
God will bless the righteous, those who are in a right relationship with him, and that blessing takes a very specific form.
His favor, which the sources define as his unmerited goodwill, his divine approval.
It's the practical outflow of that multitude of thy mercy from verse 7, and the imagery of how that favor works is just magnificent.
It will compass him as with a shield.
And not just a little buckler you hold in one hand.
Yeah.
The idea here is a massive body-covering shield. God's favor completely surrounds the believer, a 360-degree perimeter of protection.
It protects from all those things he mentioned earlier, the lies, the deceit, the schemes.
All of it. It's the Old Testament foundation for what Paul calls the shield of faith in Ephesians chapter 6, verse 16, which quenches all the fiery darts of the wicked. David starts his day with the absolute confidence that he is completely surrounded and protected by the king's approval.
What a journey. This deep dive into Psalm 5 has laid out such a powerful model. It takes us from bringing our raw, unspoken anxiety before God to understanding our access is only by his mercy, and then landing on the solid confidence that his favor is our shield.
It really is a lesson in intentional transfer, isn't it? Transferring our focus from our enemies and our problems to God's unchanging holiness and his promised defense. And it calls us to live with this deep integrity, knowing our lives are a witness.
And if we really take that model seriously, especially that prayer in verse 8, to be led in God's righteousness, it leaves us with a pretty challenging final thought.
It does.
Considering David pleaded to be led by God's perfect standard, we have to ask ourselves,
In what subtle ways might we, in our own prayers, be trying to lead God down the path of our righteousness? Are we demanding he conform to our ideas of fairness, our timeline, our sense of justice? Or are we truly, humbly submitting to his path, whatever it may be?
It's a huge question. Are we seeking his will, or are we just asking him to bless ours? It all starts with that choice we make in the morning.
It really does.
A deeply challenging thought to end on. Thank you so much for walking us through this. The analysis today was drawn directly from the teaching series created by the You Need Faith in Jesus team.
It was a pleasure.
To solidify your understanding of this lesson, be sure to use the flashcards to review key terms and then take the quiz. Passing the quiz will mark this lesson as complete.